This is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield from the Lynn Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Michael provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is Mike Mansfield with the Lynn Group. First and foremost, Merry Christmas. It is the Christmas season. I've got a lot of little girls at home. We've got a family. We love the holidays. We love Christ. These are great things to be celebrating. Tana can't be here today. I guess our Christmas started earlier for her. But I've got a lot to talk about. Wanted to make a quick video to touch on a couple things. One thing is, I just mentioned Christmas, but let's be honest. Christmas has come early, and it came to you in the form of a giant present from the Federal Reserve, Powell, in the beginning of the month. It's fascinating to watch the Federal Reserve speak and to watch the monthly meetings that they hold, the minutes that they put out after their meetings, the things that the board members of the Federal Reserve are talking about. It becomes this element of almost Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, where you go back just a few months ago, and Jerome Powell was standing at the pulpit explaining how, gosh, there's going to be more rate increases. Things aren't quite working. These pieces of inflation are sticky. What are we going to do? And you fast forward to the beginning of December, and my goodness, who is this gentleman amongst us? The opposite has changed. All of the sudden, everything is working. Everything is great. In fact, we're feeling so kind at the Federal Reserve. We're going to lay out the red carpet and help you all understand our goals for rate cuts very directly instead of vaguely. Normally, everything's vague with them. They laid out very specifically that they're expecting 70 or 3/4 point rate cuts next year. So taking the Fed funds rate from 5.5% where it is now down to 4.75%. And what has the stock market done? The stock market pulled its hair out and said, hot dog, finally, we're back into risk on, party on mode because the Fed just told us all the secrets. Because the way that it works is simple. When the Federal Reserve drives the economy, it's like driving a car. You can either step on the gas or you can step on the brakes. When you cut rates, you're ultimately stepping on the gas, because when you make money cheaper, people buy cars faster. They buy mortgages quicker. They take loans in their businesses quicker. The velocity of the money speeds up. Whereas the opposite has been happening for the last year and a half. The Fed has been pushing on the brakes by raising rates, trying to slow things down, get that inflation under control. So this is wild. Now, if you've been in meetings with me in the last few months, I've talked pretty extensively to a lot of people about this, so maybe you've heard it before. But I believe that the federal government, the economics, and the politics are overly interwound. And it is rather amazing to me that we're now only basically 10 months out from a major election, and Powell suddenly has a full change of heart. Suddenly everything is working. Suddenly inflation is all going to be under control. Suddenly everything is awesome. Every rhetoric on the news on CNBC that I've got playing over here is talking about the soft landing and the economy is intact and the labor market's going to stay tight. This is going to be awesome. We did it. We helped all of you. Oh my gosh. To me, this reeks of politics, right? This is kind of the time and time again thing that here we go. Powell wants to keep his job. We need the stock market to boom. We need the economy to feel a little more intact. Rate cuts do that. And we're already experiencing it. I mean, the stock market has rallied dramatically. Now, it's also seasonality. One of the things I talked about a month or two ago is seasonally, historically and statistically, when the stock market's up big in the first half of the year, generally the third quarter is garbage and you have a nice fourth quarter rally. So that's all set up perfectly. You throw these rate cut projections on the fire and things are just booming on all cylinders at the moment. And it's interesting because, like I said, the news has this focus about everything is great. Look, our GDP is at 5%. Everything is solid and happy. I'm a bit of a contrarian. I'm a little skeptical. I love the data, I love the research, and I have a lot of, we'll say, curiosities about how things are really going to go over the next handful of years. One of the things that's interesting here, I saw this article the other day. Is the US in a silent depression? I thought, oh, that's a weird headline. And what it talks about is on social media, Americans feel so bad about their own financial standing, even when the country is in good shape. I thought, wait a second, the feds, Janet Yellen, all the people talking on the news, they're telling me that everything's going great out there, that everything is solid and fantastic. And it's amazing that all of a sudden the subtleties of normal people in social media are saying, hey, as you can kind of see here in the first bullet point, housing, transportation, food, all of these things are making everything more expensive. So, yeah, the government's telling me everything is great. The stock market is up, which is good for some people, not everybody. Um, but something is going on kind of below the surface of the water here. And so that's something that I think we all need to be aware of is, are things as healthy as are suddenly being presented to us? Are things going as smooth as they're being presented to us? For example, the United States, 70% of our GDP is consumer spending. People going out, pulling out that old credit card, swiping it, spending money. The government has used this as a bullet point in the last number of months that, hey, the economy is holding together because people are spending money. That's good news. Well, what's interesting about that is people are spending money. In fact, holiday sales have been up higher year over year. All of that's great. The problem is it's all going on credit cards. Here on the screen, you guys can see let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Here's US credit card debt, right? So this is just the last 3 years. In 3 years, you can see this thing used to be $770 billion. It's now almost 1.1 trillion. Credit cards are accelerating. This is the highest amount of credit card debt ever held. This is a problem. Well, so what, Mike? People are spending money. Remember, life is good. We're feeling good. Is that totally true? Here's commercial banks' delinquency rates on consumer credit card loans. This is a 3-year outlook. The point of the chart, if anyone can see it here on the screen, is it's going up. It's not crazy, but we're starting to get some more delinquencies. So people are putting on the credit cards. Things aren't going as smooth as some people are implying. So it's something to be aware of. We love to use this tool on here. It's a very visual piece. You guys can go to the CME group and you can look at what the projections are for when these Fed rate, cuts are coming. And this has been all over the board. But all of a sudden, since the Fed meeting here in the beginning of December, these have accelerated. So, like, for example, if I go to March, that's only 3 months out, everybody. The current Fed funds rate sits at that far right column, that 5.25 to 5.5 range. There's only a 17% chance at the moment that we're even still there. There's over an 80% chance they've cut rates somewhere between quarter and a half a point. You go to May, there's no chance we're still sitting at current rates. There's 100% they've cut. You go to June, and that's what's amazing about this is the whole industry, the whole market, everybody is betting on these rate cuts in the first half of the year going into an election year. And that's why the stock market is rallying right now. This is the core of it. Another thing that I thought was interesting is we all need to be very careful with data. It is easy to take data. It is easy to manipulate data. It's easy to misconstrue data. Unfortunately, that's one of the failures of all the news. And, maybe even me, you listen to what I say, but I'm an opinionated person. This was an interesting headline to me also. Biden last week was, we'll say, mocking the former President Trump. And his comment was, you said that the stock market would crash. Ha, ha, ha. Good one, Donald. And I thought that this was fascinating because, yes, factually accurate is the stock market is up right now. That is a factually accurate statement. But during Biden's realm as president, guess what? We had the worst stock market correction in 15 years last year. I guess everyone's forgot about that. In fact, here's the chart I made of the S&P 500. I even went to kindergarten and got some crayons and I drew on it. The lower bubble you can see at the bottom circles that this is back in 2022. Can anyone guess who the president was? So in 2022 was the last high in the market, the December of 2022. And for a whole year, the stock market crashed. The S&P 500 was down over 20%. The NASDAQ was down 35%. Amazon in that time period lost 60% of its value. And in a very painful process, it has ground up over the last year painfully back to literal zero. You see the triangle I created here? The market is back to where it was 2 years ago after suffering the worst long-term correction that we've seen in 15 years since 2008. And so, yes, the president is correct that, yes, at this literal moment, the market is a high watermark. But it is simply the high watermark the market was at 2 years ago before a major crash. So, how you decide to perceive this stuff, you want to take that a step further. In this time period that we're looking at, your dollar has lost probably close to 20% of its value truly due to inflation. And so if you were to hedge the stock market index for inflation, mathematically, even though the index is sitting where it was 2 years ago, based on inflation, it's still dramatically lower. So I just thought that that was a fascinating headline, a little bit of food for thought of something that I was thinking about. But hey, there's a lot of things to be positive about. Yes, the markets are up. Yes, things are improving. Yes, there is a possibility of the soft landing that the Federal Reserve described. But the Federal Reserve is in a tight spot. At least that's my opinion of it. And the reason that I say they're in a tight spot is if the Feds cut too soon, which obviously they're talking about cutting, but if they cut too soon, they could reignite inflation. This happened in the late 70s and made inflation even worse in the early 80s. So that's a real risk that they have, is if they get too excited too quick, they could create a bigger problem. Conversely, though, one of the things that wasn't persistent in the 80s is our obnoxious amount of US debt that we carry, right? We have $34 trillion of debt in the United States. That debt has to be regularly refinanced. All those, 1-month treasury bills they sell and 1-year bonds, those are all being refinanced all the time. So when you go back a year or two ago and you were issuing debt at 0.1, 0.2%, and now a year later you have to refinance that at 4 or 5% interest, that is crushing our US debt. And it's also crushing the line item in our expenses for how much it costs the United States to service the debt. My understanding is between September and October, just that 1 month increase, the cost to service our debt doubled. Well, gosh, Powell knows that. The Federal Reserve knows that. And so they do know that if they keep rates stable for a while, or they have to raise rates further to combat inflation, that the opposite side of that coin is refinancing the debt is extremely problematic and a huge mess. So we shall see what happens, right? But anyways, that's kind of all I had for the moment. Just wanted to touch on some of those key points. Look, we're going into the holidays, as I always say, be a little selfless, do something nice for somebody else, be conscious of the blessings that we all have. We do get to live in the United States. We do get to live in the freest country in the world with all of the freedoms that are available to us. This is a true blessing. I mean, heck, we live in California. It's raining today, which is nice finally. But let's be fair. It was short weather just a week ago here in California. So we got it pretty good. But anyways, I hope everybody has a blessed holiday. I hope that everything is wonderful. Do not hesitate to reach out to our office, 805-500-7035. And we'll certainly be seeing and bugging y'all in the new year.